Welcome to Cortado Joe, where invasive reptiles and black market turtles somehow share the same chaos. A pet iguana boom, boa constrictors stuffed with drugs, and turtles selling like luxury watches. The reptile world is apparently where conservation, crime, and pure human weirdness all clock in for the same shift. Florida is basically the cautionary tale for exotic pets. People bought baby Burmese pythons thinking, sure, cute little snake, and then the thing turned into 15 feet of terrible planning. Same deal with green iguanas after the Jurassic Park era. Sales reportedly hit 5,000 a week, which is such an aggressive amount of lizard enthusiasm that of course it ended badly. Once these animals get loose or get dumped, they do great. Few predators, warm climate, endless opportunity, native ecosystems get the bill, and now Florida is juggling pythons, iguanas, tegus, and maybe even Nile crocodiles. One of the more brutally practical ideas is just eating the iguanas. It sounds wild until you realize eradication is not happening, and South Florida, Mexico, and half the internet already have recipes ready to go. Wildlife trafficking is estimated around $20 billion globally, up there with guns, drugs, and human trafficking, which is a grim list to be on. Reptiles are perfect for smugglers because they're portable, tough, and easy to hide. One guest called them nature with handles, which is funny and also extremely incriminating. The smuggling stories are insane. Drugs hidden under crates of animals, inside fish, even inside force-fed boa constrictors. Cobras allegedly put on top of shipments, so inspectors would think, you know what, maybe not today. And this is not just weird animals coming into the US anymore. American turtles are going out, especially to China and Southeast Asia, where a shipment can be worth about $500,000, and individual rare turtles can hit 20,000, even 200,000. Meanwhile, enforcement sounds wildly outgunned. Thousands of animals moving through just part of the LA corridor, and confiscated animals often arrive so starved or dehydrated they can't be rehabbed or released. A huge part of this trade is not companionship. It's status, scarcity, obsession. Collectors want the reptile nobody else has, the Rolls-Royce version, which makes this feel less like pet culture and more like art flipping with scales. That leads to the uncomfortable conservation argument here. If rare animals were legally available through captive breeding, maybe poaching would be less profitable. I get why people flinch at that idea, because it sounds like solving a black market by making the product easier to buy. But the logic is that scarcity is the product, and if you lower scarcity, maybe you lower the incentive. The problem is, some animals reproduce painfully slowly. The plowshare tortoise in Madagascar takes something like 30 to 40 years to reach sexual maturity, and poaching has nearly wiped it out. A captive breeding program is trying to send confiscated descendants back, while everyone also has to worry they'll just get stolen again. They even tried making radiated tortoises less desirable by engraving or defacing shells, and collectors still wanted them. At that point, rarity has completely eaten common sense. One thing this series really hammers home is that conservation is full of unintended consequences. A law protects one species and accidentally sweeps up a bunch of harmless relatives. A movie makes an animal lovable, and suddenly everybody wants one in the living room. California, for example, broadly bans imported python products because lawmakers didn't bother distinguishing endangered Indian pythons from non-endangered species like Burmese and reticulated pythons. It's a very blunt instrument, especially when Florida has Burmese pythons all over the place. Pop culture keeps lighting the fuse. Jurassic Park helped fuel iguanas. Harry Potter boosted owl demand in Asian markets. Finding Nemo moved clownfish. And now there's even concern that a sympathetic snake documentary could kick off another exotic pet wave. And then there are classic bad ideas like introducing mongooses to control rats in Hawaii and the Caribbean. Except mongooses are active during the day, and many of the rats are not. That is less ecosystem management and more everybody guessed. Reptiles also have a catastrophic PR problem. No legs, no floppy ears, not a lot of visible cuddling. People see a bear cub in a movie and melt. They see a snake and their nervous system files an immediate complaint. The guests talk about this moral hierarchy of dead animals, which is dark but kind of nails it. Dead fish, shrug. Dead deer, some concern. Dead bear or chimp, emotional emergency. Same thing with fundraising. An injured bald eagle can pull huge donations while a threatened turtle gets pocket lint. Some of that fear is probably biological, some cultural, some just exposure. Kids raised around reptiles can be totally comfortable with them. which suggests a lot of what adults call instinct is at least partly learned drama. There is also a very direct reminder that snakes are not stuffed animals. Eric Goode describes getting bitten by a Southern Pacific rattlesnake and needing 36 vials of antivenom. The bite caused chest pressure and breathing trouble, but he says the serum sickness from the horse-derived antivenom was actually more painful than the bite itself, which is a pretty terrible review for both snake and treatment. The useful part here is the myth-busting. Don't cut the wound, don't use a tourniquet, and absolutely don't try the old movie move of sucking out venom. The venom is already in the tissue. Stay calm and get medical help fast. Snakebite deaths in the US are actually pretty low overall, but that statistic becomes emotionally useless the moment you're sitting in a hospital waiting for more antivenom and wondering if your lungs are about to clock out. The documentary angle here is almost as interesting as the reptiles. Goode and McBride say they build these projects through long-term access, not some neat little production calendar. One series idea stretches from a 2008 book into filming around 2014, with more than 200 people involved over roughly 15 years. That kind of access matters because the subjects are guarded for obvious reasons. Some fear law enforcement, some fear animal rights groups, some just don't want anyone seeing the million-dollar obsession in the basement. One key figure had a sentence of more than 100 years for murder and drug crimes, served about 12, and the filmmakers still had to maintain enough trust to keep filming without feeling totally safe. That's a very specific workplace hazard. Their bigger point is that the real story usually isn't the animal by itself. It's the human psychology around an animal that doesn't love you back, doesn't perform affection, and still becomes the center of someone's ego, identity, status, or criminal empire. That's it for Cortado Joe. If this episode convinced you of anything, hopefully it's that exotic animal stories are never just about the animal. They're about obsession, money, terrible ideas, and occasionally a 4-foot iguana turning into dinner. See you next time. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.